two unique well springs of creativity are changing the face of filmmaking through a masterful blend of the century-old technique of stop-motion animation and the latest technological marvel, computer-generated imagery. Coming up, we'll travel to San Francisco's Skellington Productions, where director Henry Selick's union of old and new gives birth to James and the Giant Peach, one of the most ambitious visual effects films ever. And we'll visit Will Vinton Studios in Portland, Oregon, to meet the father of claymation. We'll see how Vinton's remarkable characters come to life on miniature stop-motion sets and in the vast realm of cyberspace.
I want to be blue.
Wait.
It's a colorful, bizarre, and adventurous journey north, where Hollywood's animated neighbors are bridging the decades of movie magic. In James and the Giant Peach, a young boy encounters a friendly circle of human-sized insects with human-like personalities.
My aching back.
Together, they embark on a spectacular adventure atop an enormous enchanted peach. But the real magic takes place inside a large warehouse in downtown San Francisco, home to Skellington Productions. Here, director Henry Selick is heading up a colossal effort to bring the story's amazing images to life. To accomplish this, Selick and his production team are integrating two effects techniques: the craftsmanship of stop-motion animation, in which puppets are moved in minute increments and filmed one frame at a time, and computer-generated imagery, or CGI.
It's a bit of John Henry versus the steam hammer going on. The appeal of stop motion, for me, is an undeniable presence. You really feel like you could reach out and touch those objects that have come to life. It was the nature of this film, especially that we're traveling over the ocean, that got me interested in pursuing computer animation.
Computer-generated imagery creates a dynamic ocean consistent with the film's fantasy look. Other images, including a large flock of seagulls and a sinister shark, are also being created in the computer. Of the film's 607 stop-motion shots, 330 will be composited, or digitally integrated with computer graphics. But the first step in bringing the characters of James and the Giant Peach to life is filming the intricate stop-motion shots.
Catches it, it just starts to lift the edge and slide.
Selick is considered one of today's most gifted stop-motion filmmakers. His artistic talent emerged at age 5, long before he discovered film.
I did very little filmmaking as a kid. I was mainly someone who drew all the time. You know, I filled up thousands of pads with sketches and drawings.
Selick began directing stop-motion animation for MTV in the mid-1980s.
Here, Robert. A measure of our gratitude.
His short film, Slow Bob in the Lower Dimensions, combines stop-motion with live action. Slow Bob caught the attention of producer-director Tim Burton, who hired Selick to direct one of the most elaborate stop-motion films ever, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
On The Nightmare Before Christmas, we wanted to overcome several of the curses of stop motion, which were locked cameras, fairly weak lighting, and overly simplistic. Things looked like they were on a tabletop. And we wanted the animation to be smoother.
Now, with the success of Nightmare behind him, Selick has reunited most of the same crew to push the envelope even further with James and the Giant Peach.
Ready? And Action.
What are they? Bugs! Giant bugs!
While the large majority of the movie is animated, the opening and closing scenes are live action, requiring Selick to direct real actors. However, for the stop-motion scenes, Selick must direct the action through his team of puppet animators.
She lets go, and there's a bit of a little drop in there. Make it precarious feeling.
Much of Selick's stop-motion direction takes place while viewing test footage with the animators. Several tests are conducted for each stop-motion shot in the film. These tests serve as rehearsals for the animators.
So while you're in the rehearsal process, which are what we call pop-throughs, you'll start with broad poses to try and communicate what the shot is about, just kind of finding your marks.
Inside the Skellington warehouse are 25 stop-motion stages, separated by black curtains. Each of the film's 18 animators works solo, often spending 14 hours a day animating James and his insect cohorts. The stop-motion process is so exacting that experienced animators, such as Justin Cohn, are able to film an average of only 45 frames, or just under 2 seconds of footage per day. Cohn uses a video system called a frame grabber to look at the frame he is about to film, as well as the last several frames he has completed.
Let's see, it's gonna work.
If Cohn's adjustment of the puppet on a given frame is off by even a fraction of an inch, the result is a pop or jump in movement that breaks the fluidity of the animation.
See, it's not drop dead perfect. You can see that there's a little teeny bit of a pop forward on it, but you know, not 1 out of 50 people will notice it. But you know, Henry's probably one of those guys that notice it. But
the animators themselves click off each frame during filming. However, pre-planning and setup of camera movement is handled by Director of Photography and Effects Supervisor Pete Kozacek.
Pushing on the kid where we really have to start seeing this rhino.
The camera crew studies detailed storyboard renderings of how the action will unfold. Corresponding camera moves are then programmed into the computer of a motion control camera. Motors inside the camera move it in slight increments each time a frame is shot. For the Peach, Kozacek designed another motion control system similar in concept to a flight simulator. With each frame exposure, the motion control systems automatically move the camera and Peach in barely perceptible increments. Freed of this chore, the animator can focus solely on posing the characters. When the shot is completed, the characters, Peach, and camera all move in synchronicity. Long before his engineering feats on James and the Giant Peach, 11-year-old Pete Kozacek was filming stop-motion animation with an 8mm movie camera.
Seems like something that a lot of us effects practitioners have in common as a misspent youth, putting together our own version of our favorite rubber monster picture. Mine was King Kong.
No one could have imagined that the photographic skills learned by young Pete Kozacek and the creative vision found in Henry Selick's childhood drawings would one day lead to a collaboration that is setting a new standard for stop-motion animation.
Biggest puddle in them all, Angel Fangs.
Coming up, a wild gallery of stop-motion creatures and digital characters are brought to life by the father of claymation.
Great.
And a bizarre electronically charged character known as Mr. Resistor runs rampant through a dusty attic. These and hundreds of other fantastic characters were not created in the hustle of Hollywood, but on a colorful street corner in Portland, Oregon, at Will Vinton Studios.
For me, it's been a fascination with bringing things to life, bringing characters to life.
Even though Will Vinton and co-creator Bob Gardner won a 1975 Oscar for their first animated film, Closed Mondays, it was a singing band of hip raisins that brought the studio to national prominence in the mid-'80s. And claymation became Vinton's exclusive term for his special brand of stop-motion animation. Today, Will Vinton Studios is acclaimed for dimensional animation, a masterful blend of clay, stop motion, and computer-generated imagery. Vinton's commercial spots for Fanta Soda feature a spry green character who enlivens a cow cocktail party. While Fanta Man is a computer-generated image, the cows are created from clay and cut out photos of human eyes and mouths. They are then filmed on a stop-motion set and later composited with computer graphics.
That shoe doesn't look like it's rotating much.
When Vinton was contracted to produce a series of M&M commercials, studio president David Altschul saw a perfect opportunity for CGI.
It was important that the surfaces of the M&Ms actually look like real M&Ms. And we knew that we could come close with clay or other materials, but that it would never be perfectly real. Whereas we knew that we could hit it dead on in the computer.
While Will Vinton Studios has successfully created lifelike characters in the computer, it has not abandoned stop motion. For the Vinton Halloween television special, Comedy of Horrors, master animator Teresa Drilling brings life to a stop-motion puppet constructed from foam latex, clay, and plastic.
This character is a character called Famine. He's supposed to be one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Naturally, he's a skeleton because he's famished. He's at a convention. He's on a sabbatical right now, so he's just kind of whooping it up with his buddies and getting kind of skunked.
Key to effective animation is the ability to create movement appropriate to a character's personality, especially one as outrageous as Famine's.
What? You are mortal.
One of Teresa's secrets is studying reference film, which will never be seen by audiences.
The actors that we see here in the reference film are the actual actors that perform the voices. When we bring them in to perform the voices on mic, we also bring in a film crew, and we actually film the actors as they perform the voices. Here we have the skeleton character.
But you know what? If any of those other guys knew you were alive, they'd rip your snout off.
The animators then use that as reference as they go out on the set and actually animate.
But you know what? If any of those other guys knew you were alive, they'd rip your snout off. Hello?
And as the project continues on, more and more of the finished animated shots get dropped into place, and pretty soon the whole show is in its entirety finished.
Fellas, I want you to meet Dr. Jekyll.
The success of both stop-motion animation and CGI depends on artistic vision. Realizing this, Vinton cross-trains his animators so that they can apply their talent to either medium.
In fact, the essence of what we were doing, bringing characters to life, is translated just verbatim almost over from the 3D models in real space to 3D computer animation. The transition has been one for us of not R&Ding the software and the hardware of computer animation, but rather keeping our focus on the artistry, on breathing life into these characters.
No matter the medium, Will Vinton Studios will continue creating a varied array of fascinating characters with enough quirky human traits to keep audiences entranced. Coming up, a mechanical puppet, a huge tank of water, and white paint create a chilling scene for James and the Giant Peach. Magical characters of James and the Giant Peach were created in the rich imagination of acclaimed children's novelist, the late Roald Dahl. Now, inside the Skellington studio, Dahl's characters are coming to life in 3 dimensions.
I really like to make sure each character is completely unique. How they look, you know, one's extra long and skinny, and one's extra squat and round, the length of their legs, everything's very distinct.
All of the stop-motion puppets are built from scratch in Skellington's fabrication shop. Beneath their colorful exteriors is the most important part of any stop-motion puppet: the flexible steel skeletal structures called armatures. The multi-armed centipede armature, made up of 241 parts and 135 screws, was the most complex. One of the film's most striking characters is a mysterious cloud-dwelling rhinoceros. An armature covered with a synthetic fabric skin, the rhino must angrily charge the peach. To create the scene, director Henry Selick turns to a visual effects artist occupying a unique niche in the world of cinematic illusion. Gary Platek, president of Jex Effects in San Rafael, California, is known for his ability to create visual effects through the use of a cloud tank. The cloud tank is a 7-foot square by 4-foot tall glass tank that holds up to 1,000 gallons of water. Through mixtures of water and paint, Platek can create ominous weather illusions, such as those seen in Ghostbusters and Raiders of the Lost Ark. But the rampaging rhino is a new challenge.
He's supposed to be running up toward James. James has yelled, you know, you're not even a real rhino. And he starts slowing down and questioning it.
Platek conducts several practice runs to assure the proper speed and movement of the rhino. For the actual take, a half-liter of white paint mixed with water is inserted into tubes concealed within the rhino's horn, jawline, shoulders, and legs. The paint will be diffused through the model's synthetic skin suit, creating the illusion that the rhino's charge is causing cloud dispersal.
Action! The suit sort of diffuses it, so it has a real nice, natural look. If the tubes were outside the suit, then it just burst out, and you'd see where it was coming from. Cut!
Platek's film footage of the rhino charge is scanned into a computer, so it can be digitally composited with the stop-motion James puppet. The compositing takes place at Buena Vista Visual Effects, or BVVE, on the Disney lot in Burbank, California.
You want people not to notice that you worked on the film. It's not reality-based where you want everything to look real, but you want everything to look as if it was done by stop-motion animators in a studio.
Visual effects supervisor Dorn Hubler is responsible for 237 computer-enhanced shots, including 40 that comprise the rhino scenes.
That actually was a real challenge because there are so many elements that had to line up to each other, and it's in the middle of a kind of flashing lightning storm.
To create a shot of the rhino reflected in James' eyes, the BVVE team duplicates and reduces the size of the cloud tank footage. Motion software is used to synchronize the rhino's charge with each frame of a zoom into a close-up of James' eyes. BVVE is also responsible for several computer-generated sky elements, such as the billows of steam rising from teapot-shaped clouds. A floating stellar mobile and the twinkling stars behind it are computer-generated as well. Because the digital demands of James and the Giant Peach are so great, they are being shared with Sony Pictures Imageworks in Culver City, California. Academy Award-winning digital animation and effects supervisor Scott Anderson and his team are involved in more than 70 shots. One of the biggest challenges is the creation of a computer-generated ocean that must blend with Selick's style of stop-motion animation.
We really wanted to capture what he wanted, which was the animated and the hand-done sense of the water. So we did a sort of a hybrid approach. Each individual crest of the wave was actually a simple animated profile of a wave. So the way it went up and the way it collapsed was hand-done in the computer by one of our animators.
The Sony team also created a battleship-like three-dimensional shark.
We just felt that by doing the shark digitally, we could give additional interaction between the shark and the water that would be harder to do if we were taking a stop-motion shark in and putting it into the digital water. So by copying their animation style and working with them, we really tried to blend the worlds together and make it as seamless as possible.
The computer-generated imagery created by Sony Pictures Imageworks and Buena Vista Visual Effects adds a new dimension to stop-motion animation and has helped make James and the Giant Peach a visual feast. Whether utilized to produce a magical ocean or to breathe life into memorable characters, CGI is expanding the palette of visual effects artists.
Along comes this tool called the computer that creates three-dimensional models inside of the confines of the computer itself in three-dimensional spaces, and virtually does exactly the same thing that we've been doing for years and years. This is the absolutely sort of next step for dimensional animation.
Yeah, man.
At the same time, the special appeal of stop-motion animation will continue as it has for nearly a century.
There's definitely a future for stop motion. It's still, after, at this point, probably 80 years, still is this primal movie magic that nothing else really touches for its immediacy and tactile qualities.
But when it comes to creating fantasy, the medium is secondary. It is ultimately the imagination of gifted visionaries such as Will Vinton and Henry Selick that truly creates movie magic.
Coming up next, see how the bicycles of tomorrow will have space-age innovations on Next Step. Then SS officials and Nazi supporters are brought to trial on Nuremberg. Explore your world on the Discovery Channel.